What does it actually cost to visit Europe's most popular cities? I'm ranking 13 of them from cheapest to most expensive, and after doing this for 15 years, I can tell you there are some real surprises coming up. I'm Roger from priceoftravel.com. Let's get started. Tied for 12th is Budapest, and for most of the last 15 years this would have easily been the cheapest city on this list, but lately, especially in summer, hotel prices have crept up quite a bit. It's still a fantastic bargain and one of Europe's great capital cities, but even a few years ago it would have been less than half the price of some of the ones coming up. On my test date in July, the cheapest qualifying 3-star hotel comes in at $105 per night for 2 people including tax. So the main attractions, meals, and transportation are still very affordable here, so you can live it up a bit and still spend less than you would in most of the cities coming up. Also tied for 12th is Prague, which has actually been more famous for hotel prices going up in summer, but on my test date, the cheapest qualifying option was just $96 per night in a great central location. Other expenses here are a bit higher than in Budapest, especially for food and drinks in the tourist areas, but it's still very good value overall, even in peak summer. And for each of these cities, I'm also including one of the main must-see attractions in the total, so for example, Prague Castle runs around $21. So it's not the bargain it once was, but it's still a place where you can travel comfortably without spending a fortune. Number 11 on the list is Berlin, which is also a bit of a surprise. It's been famously affordable for a big European city for decades, but I wasn't expecting it this early, and you'll see what I mean with some of the cities coming up. On my test date in July, the cheapest qualifying hotel is about $118 per night. And one interesting thing here is that when I first started visiting in the 1990s, hotels in the former East were much cheaper than in the former West, but now it's almost flipped, with the trendiest neighborhoods in the East and the better hotel deals often in the West. So it's not quite the bargain it once was, but it's still a place where you can travel comfortably without spending a fortune. Number 10 on the list is Lisbon, which has been one of Europe's best bargains for a long time, but the word is definitely out and the city has gotten a lot more popular in recent years. On my test date in July, the cheapest qualifying 3-star hotel comes in at about $128 per night, which is now pretty similar to Madrid, even though it used to be quite a bit cheaper. It's still a great value overall though, and you can easily have a good lunch and dinner here for under $40 per person. It's not the hidden gem it used to be, but it's still really good value, especially compared to some of the cities coming up. Number 9 on the list is Athens, and this is really the last of the true bargains before prices start climbing more quickly from here. Athens has long been known for good value, with a qualifying central hotel coming in at about $135 per night in July. And even the big attractions are a bit of a mixed bag. The Acropolis is now up to about $34, but many of the other sites are still reasonably priced, and a one-day transit pass is only around $5. So it's still a fantastic value, but from here on out you'll definitely start to feel the difference in prices. Number 8 on the list is Rome, which is another one that comes in a bit sooner than I expected. Hotels here have gotten noticeably more expensive over the last decade, but on my test date you can still find a qualifying hotel just a few blocks from the Trevi Fountain for about $138 per night in mid-July. And the main attractions are still quite reasonable. The Colosseum and Ancient Rome complex is only around $20 to enter. Interestingly, Florence is now often more expensive for hotels, which is a bit of a newer development. So Rome isn't quite as expensive as many people expect, at least compared to what's coming up. And if you're planning a trip here, I've got another video with 5 different Europe itineraries, and several include Rome, which might help if you're putting a trip together. Next, at number 7, right in the middle of the list, is Paris, which might surprise some people who would expect it to be more expensive. On my test date, the cheapest qualifying hotel comes in at about $146 per night, with a strong review score in a convenient Montmartre location. Hotels closer to the Seine are more expensive, but you can still find good value in tourist-friendly neighborhoods, and the transit system here is excellent for getting around quickly. And this is a good example of prices creeping up. The Louvre now costs about $37 to enter for non-Europeans, which is almost double what it was just a few years ago. So Paris is still pricey, but maybe not quite as expensive as you'd expect, at least for now. Number 6 on the list is Amsterdam, and if you've been watching the numbers on the screen, you'll notice that Paris and these next few cities are all pretty tightly grouped, so they're almost tied. Amsterdam is another place where centrally located hotels have gotten quite expensive over the years, with the cheapest qualifying 3-star coming in at about $180 per night. Once you've got a place to stay though, food prices are still fairly reasonable thanks to a huge number of tourist-friendly restaurants. And for example, tickets to the Anne Frank house are about $19, so this is where you really start to feel it every time you pull out your wallet. Number 5 on the list, and if this were a pop chart countdown, it would be number 5 with a bullet, is Barcelona. This city has become so popular with tourists that locals are now famously protesting over-tourism, and that surge in demand has pushed hotel prices up quite a bit. On my test date in July, the qualifying hotel comes in at about $162 per night near the Sagrada Familia. Not long ago, Barcelona and Madrid were very similar in price, but now Barcelona is probably around 30% more expensive. So it's still a great place to visit, but you're definitely paying a premium for that popularity these days. And if you don't want to deal with the massive crowds here, I've got another video with summer alternatives to these super popular cities. I'll link that below. Number 4 on the list is Venice, Italy, and this one's a bit of a surprise because 5 or 10 years ago it would have been at least the second to the most expensive city on the list. I've been ranking tourist cities by price since 2010 on priceoftravel.com, and hotels near the St. Mark's Square were always among the most expensive in Europe. But this year, the qualifying 3-star hotel comes in at only about $164 per night in July. Food here is still fairly expensive, and some might say overpriced, but at least you can now stay in a good central hotel for a reasonable price, which definitely wasn't the case not that long ago. Number 3 on the list is Copenhagen, and this one actually surprised me a bit, especially since it comes in just slightly cheaper than London, so these two are almost tied. If you've been following my backpacker index ranking over the years, you might remember that Copenhagen used to rank closer to cities like Venice in overall cost. But for this list, I focused specifically on mid-July prices, and these northern cities get noticeably more expensive during their short summer peak. On my test date, the qualifying hotel comes in at about $190 per night, and once you're there, food and drinks are also quite expensive, so the overall daily costs add up quickly. Interestingly, Stockholm comes in at almost exactly the same price level, but I didn't include both, so consider that a bit of a bonus mention. And this is really where you start to see the difference between southern and northern Europe, especially in summer. There are still ways to save a bit here, but in general, this is one of those places where you should expect to pay more for just about everything. Number 2 on the list is London, which is a city I know very well, and it's long been famous as a place where almost everything costs a bit more than you were expecting. On my test date in July, the qualifying hotel comes in at about $154 per night, with good reviews and a location near the British Museum. You can find cheaper places if you don't need to be within walking distance of a major attraction, but that was part of the criteria I used here. That said, once you're actually in the city, it's the daily expenses that really add up. Food, drinks, and even small things tend to be noticeably more expensive than in the cities we've already covered. For example, the Tower of London is now about $49 to enter. One thing that does help a bit though is that many of the major museums here are free. And compared to cities like Paris or Rome, it's really those day-to-day costs that make London feel more expensive overall, even if the hotel price itself doesn't look that extreme. If you're careful about where you eat and how you get around, you can manage it, but it takes a bit more effort than in most cities on this list. And number 1 on the list by a considerable margin, about 35% higher than even London, is Zurich, Switzerland. To be honest, I don't even really recommend visiting Zurich as a tourist unless you've got plenty of time and someone else is paying for it, but I like to include it because it's just bananas expensive even compared to the cities I just talked about. The cheapest qualifying hotel here is $304 per night, which is more than $100 higher than all of the others on the list. Zurich is actually really nice, but there isn't that much to see aside from price tags on everything that don't really make sense anywhere else. And by the way, for those who are curious, if New York City were somehow on this list, a similar hotel near Times Square would be about $336 per night, so even a bit more, but you can still find cheap food in New York, and you absolutely cannot in Zurich. And by the way, it's not just Zurich. All of Switzerland is way more expensive than its neighbors, and pretty much all of it is beautiful too. And as you can see, prices can vary quite a bit depending on where you go, especially in peak summer. If you found this helpful, I've got a full breakdown with updated prices and hotel picks on priceoftravel.com, and I'll link that below. And if you're planning a trip, you might also want to check out my video on summer alternatives to these crowded cities. It can save you a lot of money and hassle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.